Hey, what's going on YouTube? Alabama Reloader here. um, so today, if you'll remember, or if you've watched one of the previous videos, I talk about working up a hunting load for a buddy of mine. He had reached out to me, something that I'd done for him in the past, and he was running low on the hunting ammo, so he was wanting some more. Well, I switched some things up on the load. I didn't have any more of the brass that I'd used before. And he had just lost it through the process of moving and different things like that. Didn't have it with him anymore. Also the powder that I'd used at the time, I don't have a lot on hand currently. Didn't even have enough to load him up another, 50 rounds or whatever. Even if I had the brass and could duplicate the load, I didn't have enough to even load up, a decent amount of rounds for him. So we stuck with the same bullet though. It's the Sierra 165 grain Game Kings, the hollow point boat tail version, not the Spitzer point or Spire point. So we stuck with that. We switched to Starline brass from Sig brass. So that I felt like was a really good move. I went through, checked the Starline brass, just incredible value when it comes to quality, what you get, and just in general, for the price. Really good stuff. Extremely consistent. So we switched to that. For the powder, on the powder side of things, we switched to Accurate 2520. And in the Western Powders load guide, there was they had load data for the 165 grain Game King, but not really a problem, but the bullet was for the Spitzer point, not the hollow point boat tail. So, and you're able to seat those bullets slightly longer. I think the overall length on those was 2.810. The overall length that we're operating with the hollow point boat tail Game King is 2.750. So dropping it back 60 thousandths. But I did duplicate the charge weights, knowing that toward the top end of the test, we could potentially see some pressure signs and things like that. So, but these are the first 10 shots that we loaded up for my buddy. His name's Will, by the way. That's what that means. Will. Brett's the other guy. So that's the second, second buddy of mine. I volunteered to work up a load for this, for a rifle he just bought. So, Will is my buddy that asked me to work up the rounds. So here's the 10 shot, the Satterlee load test. Group size, it's not significant when I'm doing this test. We're primarily focused on velocity data, which I'll show you the graph, and for people that are really into that kind of stuff, I'll show you the graph. I've got it behind this target, but I'll show you that here in a second. But group size, you do at least want to pay attention to it. You're not out there just, running rounds haphazardly, don't really care where they go. You're just trying to collect velocity data, which is that is the point of the test, is trying to find those velocity nodes and the flat spots. But if you've got a rifle that just isn't going to shoot that bullet very well, you could be in for an interesting reloading development, type marathon of trying to get a bullet to shoot really well. This group, it was 2.5 inches. That's overall, that's not taking a bullet diameter out. So that's outside edge to outside edge on these shots here. And it's 2.5 inches. That's not bad for an overall spread, of almost 2 grains of powder in charge weight. And you're at 2.5 inches. So that tells me that the rifle likes the bullet that we went with. Hopefully will be a good powder choice for us. And I know the rifle likes the bullet already. That's what I worked up before, but just kind of further validates it. If we're spraying bullets all over the place, maybe a different story. So, but that's that guy there. This is also, I'll kind of switch over and give you a view of the laptop so I can talk through everything that we got going on. But that's the target for Will. That's the target for Brett. We're shooting the exact same bullet, same brass. We switched up the powder to IMR 4064 for Brett's loads, and different primer. And those are the changes. His rifle is a Thompson Center Compass, the Gen 1, not the Gen 2. Thompson Center Compass in 308 with a Vortex Diamondback. I think it's a 4-12, by 40 scope. And then Will's setup is a Browning A-bolt in 308 with a Leupold, I think it's like a 3.5 to 10, scope, something along those lines. So that's what we're working with. Those are the rifles, that we're playing around with. So let's check the load data for Will first. So this was the load data, there's the Browning A-bolt, 308, there's the Leupold, the scope, Starline brass, accurate 25-20 on the powder, all the stuff I just told you, Federal gold medal match large rifle primers, charge weights and velocities. So if you'll notice, the velocities on the first several charge weights were very consistent, hovering around that 2,800 feet per second mark. I mean, from 45.7 all the way up to 46.7. So a full grain, change in powder. We didn't really see, you had a drop down there of 27.85 and picked up 28.25, but for the most part, I mean, it was pretty stable within that entire range. And then when we switched to 46.9, that was where we saw the spike in velocity up to 2870, and then 47.1, 2875, drop back down a little bit, and then we finish at 2901. So these were some pretty good velocities, pushing 165 grain bullet in 308. Yeah, that's cooking pretty good in the 308 category. So accurate 25-20, I believe, was the fastest powder that Western Powders had listed in their manual. So we went with that. But yeah, we pretty good results. I would say, for what I was looking for, what I was trying to accomplish, good results. I actually have already loaded up a follow-up test group at 47 grains. So exactly in the middle there between those two, the 2870 and 2875. So we're gonna load up 47, or I've already loaded up the 47 grain test charge, and I'll go out and just see if we can get some decent accuracy. We're looking for sub MOA. That's kind of the ideal best case scenario. We're looking for sub MOA. He would like for the velocity to stay elevated over 2,800 feet per second at the muzzle. So we're trying to work with that. But yeah, so we'll see what it gets us in there. Get a follow-up video on that once we get back out to the range. And then here's the load data for Brett. So Brett's setup is different. Like I was saying, Thompson Center Compass and 308. You got the Vortex Diamondback, same brand on the brass, and the brass and stuff came out of the same batch. Same bullet, again, came out of the same box. Let's see. Different primer. I went with the CCI bench rest. I think it's number 4. Large rifle primer. Correct me if I'm wrong on that, but I think that's what it is. And then, of course, IMR 4064. And so our charge weights are slightly lower. Sierra had load data for IMR 4064, so I pulled it off their load data, and I think 43.7 might be the max, I think. So yeah, so I worked up, I believe, to the max, or just really, really close to it. I think it might be the max. And these are loaded at 2.750. So same overall length, and here's the velocities that we got. So, you're looking at a couple hundred feet per second slower than the accurate 2520. Now with that, I mean, we're getting close to a compressed load, you know, with the accurate 2520, and we didn't see anything crazy in terms of pressure. Nothing to be concerned about, but it's definitely a hotter load, and I wouldn't want to go much above where we stopped. But yeah, so there's the graph for the IMR 4064. Really nice how this graph kind of laid out. In my opinion, better than the accurate 2520. Our velocities are lower, but you have clearly defined graduations in your velocities, right? I mean, that's ideally what you're wanting to see. You're wanting to see consistent velocity climbs and then plateaus, and then climb and plateau. Climb, you know, that's really what you're looking for. And then once you land on that plateau, pick a charge weight in there, and roll with that. So on this one, we went with 42.9. That's right here. There's a 8 feet per second spread between those 3 different charge weights that we tried. And there's 4/10 of a grain difference between those, right? So we just went with directly in the middle, 42.9 as a test load, follow-up test load. So we'll see how those go when we get back out to the range. But that's it. That's really how I run the Satterlee load test. In 308, I jump in 2/10 of a grain increments. Smaller cases, you know, may just be a tenth. 6.5 Creedmoor probably still do 2/10 of a grain jumps on that. But that's really how I run it. So that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Just stay tuned. This is, you know, development of the hunting load for those guys. Deer season's coming up really fast. Gun season anyway. Bow season's already here. So gun season's coming up in November. So we got to get this stuff done, knocked out, load up a bunch and give it to them and say, here you go. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it. And, you know, hopefully you guys, you know, maybe you've tried this method, or you use this method regularly when working up new loads. I don't use it all the time, but in this case, you know, I want to give these guys something that consistency wise, in terms of velocity, you know, they know every time they go out, especially if I'm going to give them a drop table to go with it, everything needs to be as consistent as possible when you try to find some really good velocity nodes to kind of hone in on. So that's it. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and we'll catch you next time.